The letter came back marked "Forwarded" in bold red ink. I stood there in my dorm hallway, staring at the envelope I'd sent to my childhood home 2 weeks ago. My hand started shaking. Something wasn't right. My name is Cassandra, and 6 months ago, I lost both my parents in a car crash during my freshman year of college. One moment, I was stressing about midterms. The next, I was planning a double funeral. The only thing that kept me from completely falling apart was my Aunt Ava stepping in to handle everything. "Don't worry about the house, sweetheart," she'd said at the funeral, squeezing my shoulder. "I'll take care of it all while you focus on school. Your mother would have wanted that." I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was Mum's sister, my godmother, the person who'd always brought me birthday presents and called me her favourite niece, though I was her only one. The monthly call started right after I returned to campus. "The roof needs work," she'd sigh. "The property taxes are due." Each conversation was a carefully crafted symphony of exhaustion and martyrdom. "I really don't know how much longer I can keep throwing money at this place," she told me last week. "The maintenance alone." But now I held this returned letter, and something clicked. I called my roommate Olive. "Hey, what's wrong?" she answered, probably hearing the tension in my voice. "Remember that care package I sent home? The one with Mum's old photos I wanted to keep safe?" "Yeah?" It came back, "Forwarded." I swallowed hard. "Olive, why would mail need forwarding if the house is empty?" There was a long pause. "Have you checked your bank statements? The property tax records?" No. Aunt Ava handles all that." "Maybe it's time you did." I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. The county website was surprisingly easy to navigate. Property taxes, ownership records, utility bills. It was all there. My hands froze over the keyboard. "Olive," I whispered into the phone. "The utilities are active, all of them. Electric, water, gas. For an empty house?" She told me she had to winterize the pipes, that everything was shut off to save money. My voice cracked. "She's been lying to me." "Call her," Olive suggested. "See what she says." I did. The phone rang 3 times before Ava's familiar voice answered, warm as honey. "Cassandra, sweetheart, is everything okay?" "Hey, Aunt Ava, quick question. Is anyone checking on the house?" "Oh, Julius from next door looks in occasionally." "Why?" "Just wondering about the utilities. They're still on." A pause. Just a heartbeat too long. "Well, yes, dear. We have to maintain a minimum temperature for the pipes, you know. Wisconsin winters are brutal." "Right," I said, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. "And the water bill? Must be a mistake. I'll look into it." Another pause. "Cassandra, I know you're worried, but please trust me. I'm handling everything. Your mother..." "Don't." The word came out sharper than I intended. "Don't talk about Mom right now." After we hung up, I sat in silence, staring at the returned envelope. Mom's voice echoed in my head from years ago. "Always trust your gut, baby girl. When something feels wrong, it usually is." Olive came back from class to find me still at my desk, surrounded by printed documents and sticky notes. "What's the plan?" she asked, dropping her backpack. I looked up at her, something cold and certain settling in my stomach. "First, I'm going home for fall break, not telling Aunt Ava. And then I find out exactly what she's been doing with my house." I picked up the forwarded envelope. "Because this is just the beginning." Olive sat on her bed, watching me with concern. "You know this could get ugly, right? Family drama always does." It got ugly the moment she decided to lie to me. I started organising the papers into a folder. She thinks I'm just a grieving college kid who's too overwhelmed to pay attention, too broken to fight back. Are you? Broken, I mean. I thought about Mom and Dad, about the last time I saw them alive. About all the moments they'd never see, the graduation they'd miss, the grandchildren they'd never meet. About Aunt Ava using my grief like a shield for whatever game she was playing. "No," I said finally, "I'm not broken, I'm angry, and Aunt Ava's about to learn that was her first mistake." The autumn wind whipped around me as I parked my beat-up Honda a block away from my childhood home. Dead leaves skittered across the sidewalk, and my hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. After a 6-hour drive from campus, I wasn't prepared for what I might find. A silver SUV sat in my driveway. My driveway. "Just breathe," I whispered to myself, grabbing my phone to text Olive. "Made it. There's a car here." Her response came instantly. "Take pictures of everything." I got out and walked slowly toward the house, trying to look like just another person out for a morning stroll. That's when I heard it. Barking. A dog. We never had a dog. The front door opened, and a woman in her late 20s stepped out holding a travel mug. She wore scrubs and was calling behind her. "Be good, Max. I'll be back at 7. I watched, frozen, as she locked the door, my door, and headed to the SUV. She noticed me standing there and smiled. "Oh, hi. Can I help you?" My mouth was dry. "I was just admiring the house. It's beautiful." "Isn't it?" She beamed. "We got so lucky finding it. The landlord keeps it in amazing shape." "The landlord?" "Ms. Ava. She's fantastic. I'm Delaney, by the way." She shifted her coffee to her other hand. "Are you looking to rent in the area?" My heart pounded. "How long have you lived here?" "About 8 months now. The rent's reasonable too. Only $1,400. In this neighborhood, that's a steal." $1,400 per month for 8 months. The numbers started multiplying in my head. "Do you mind if I ask about the application process?" I forced myself to sound casual. "My friend's looking for a place." "Oh, it was super easy. Ms. Ava handles everything through her property company. Want me to give you her number?" "That would be great." Delaney pulled out her phone and showed me a business card photo. There it was in sleek typography. AT Properties LLC. "Thanks," I said, snapping a quick picture when she wasn't looking. "Really helpful." "No problem. Sorry, but I've got to run. Hospital shift." She hurried to her car, then called back. "If you're interested, there's an open house next week for the unit down the street. Same company." I waited until she drove away before slumping against a tree. My legs felt weak. A neighbour's door opened and I recognised Julius, who'd lived next door my entire life. His eyes widened when he saw me. "Cassandra, is that you?" "Hi, Julius." He glanced at my house, then back at me, his expression uncomfortable. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Clearly not." My voice came out harder than intended. "How long have there been tenants?" He shifted his weight. "Listen, Cassandra, I thought you knew. Ava said you'd signed the house over to her, that managing it yourself was too much with college and everything. Did she show you these papers I supposedly signed?" His face fell. "No, I just assumed." "Yeah, everyone did." I pulled out my phone and dialed Olive. "Well?" She answered immediately. "It's worse than we thought. She's running a whole property company, using my house as a rental. Holy shit, what are you going to do?" I watched another car pull into my driveway, probably Delaney's roommate coming home. "I need a lawyer, and I need to be smart about this." "Don't confront her yet," Olive warned. "Get proof first. Everything documented." "Already started." I looked at Julius, who was still standing there looking guilty. "Hey, Julius, would you be willing to make a statement about what Ava told you? About the house?" He straightened up, something like relief crossing his face. "Of course. Your parents, they were good people. This isn't right." I thanked him and started walking back to my car, my mind racing. 8 months of rent, multiple properties, a whole LLC. The betrayal went so much deeper than I'd imagined. My phone buzzed. A text from Aunt Ava. "Just checking in, sweetheart. How are classes? Don't worry about the house. I just paid the property tax. It was a bit late, but all sorted now." I stared at the message, at her casual lies, at the fake cheerfulness. My fingers typed out a response. "Thanks for handling everything, Aunt Ava. You're right. I shouldn't worry about the house at all." Let her think I was still the grieving, naive niece. Let her think she had me fooled. I started my car and took one last look at my childhood home, at the strange cars in the driveway, at the dog barking in the window. "Game on, Aunt Ava," I whispered. "Game on." "Look at this," Olive said, spinning her laptop around. We sat cross-legged on her dorm room floor, surrounded by printouts and empty coffee cups. Property taxes were paid late 4 times in the past 2 years, always in lump sums. I leaned closer to the screen. "Those payment dates, they're all right after the first of the month." "When rent would come in," Olive finished. "She's using the rental income to catch up on back taxes." My phone buzzed. A text from Leighton, my dad's old friend who ran the auto shop in town. "You're not going to believe this. Just overheard Ava showing another property to renters. She's got 3 houses now." "3?" I texted back. "How?" "All managed through her company." "Want me to keep an eye out?" "Yes, document everything." Olive was already typing furiously. "Got it. AT Properties, LLC registered 18 months ago. Public record." She turned the screen again. "Look who signed as the managing member." There was Ava's signature, bold and confident, dated just 2 months after my parents' funeral. "She planned this," I said, my voice hollow. "She was planning it while I was still picking out their caskets. There's more." Olive clicked through several tabs. "She's advertising on multiple rental sites. Your house is listed as a charming historic property with modern amenities. Monthly rent is now $1,600. My hands clenched. She raised it. As of last month. But here's the thing. She's using professional photos from when my parents listed it for sale 5 years ago. The ones my mum took. Can we prove that? The metadata's still in the image files. Date, photographer, everything. I pulled out my notebook, adding to the growing list of evidence. What about the LLC? Is it legal? Technically, yes, but she's renting property she doesn't own through it. That's fraud. My phone rang. Aunt Ava. I put it on speaker. "Cassandra, sweetheart, how are you?" "Fine, just studying." "What's up?" "Oh, wonderful news. I've applied for historic status for the house. It'll help with tax breaks." Olive's eyes widened. I kept my voice steady. "Really? That's interesting. Don't you need the owner's permission for that?" A slight pause. "Well, as your guardian?" "I'm 19, Aunt Ava. You're not my guardian." Of course, but I have power of attorney." "No, you don't." My heart was pounding, but my voice remained calm. "We never filed those papers." Another pause, longer this time. "Cassandra, I'm just trying to help. Your mother would..." "I have to go. Study group." I hung up. Olive let out a low whistle. "She's getting sloppy, making mistakes." "Good." I opened my laptop, because I just found something else. We spent the next hour tracing bank records, property listings, and tax documents. Every thread we pulled revealed another lie, another scheme. Ava hadn't just stolen my house. She'd built a business on the assumption I'd never notice. My phone buzzed again. Julius, this time. Found an old recording from the summer barbecue, Ava bragging about her property empire. Want it? Yes. Send everything. Olive looked up from her research. We need to be careful here. If we spook her too early, she'll destroy evidence, I finished. I know. But look at this. I showed her the county clerk's website. There, in public records, was a lease agreement for my house. At the bottom, my signature. Forged. That's it. Olive stood up, stretching. We need a lawyer. Already on it. The university's legal clinic is helping me build a case. Free representation for students. Smart. What's next? I looked at my growing evidence file. Now we wait. Let her dig herself deeper. My phone lit up with another text from Leighton. Ava just left the hardware store, bought new locks, said something about problem tenants in the Victorian on Oak. My house, I whispered. She's changing locks on property she doesn't own, Olive said. Add it to the file. I started typing a response to Leighton when another message came through. From Delaney, the tenant. Hi, hope you don't mind. I got your number from Julius. Quick question. Did you used to live in this house? Something weird is going on with the mail. I showed Olive the message. She grinned. Perfect. The tenants are getting suspicious. Should I tell her? Not yet. But keep that line open. We might need their testimony later. I looked at my reflection in the window, seeing Mum's determination in my eyes. Aunt Ava thinks she's so clever, playing the caring aunt while stealing everything out from under me. She won't think she's clever when this is over, Olive said firmly. I nodded, adding Delaney's message to our evidence file. No, she really won't. I just don't understand why you're asking all these questions, sweetheart. Ava's voice dripped honey through the phone. The house is such a burden. I'm barely keeping up with the maintenance costs. I paced my dorm room, phone pressed to my ear, keeping my voice carefully neutral. I was thinking about coming home for a weekend, that's all. Maybe check on things. Oh, no, don't do that. The roof is being repaired, it's not safe. I caught Olive's eye across the room. She was recording the conversation, giving me a thumbs up. That must be expensive, I said. Terribly, almost $4,000 for the repairs alone. I glanced at the contractor quotes I'd gathered. The highest was $2,500. How are you paying for it? I took out a small loan. The things I do for family. She sighed dramatically. Oh, did I tell you? The historic status application is moving forward. About that, I said, gripping the phone tighter. I never agreed to... It's all handled, dear. I signed the paperwork last week. Such a relief. The tax benefits will help offset all these expenses. Olive's eyes widened. She scribbled on her notepad. Confession. She just admitted to forging documents. You signed for me? I kept my voice curious, not accusatory. Well, yes, as your proxy. It's perfectly legal given the circumstances. What circumstances? Another pause. Cassandra, are you feeling all right? You seem different lately. Just stressed about finals, I lied smoothly. Hey, quick question. Did you get the property tax notice I forwarded? It seemed urgent. What notice? Her voice sharpened slightly. Must have gotten lost in the mail. Like that care package I sent to the house. The silence stretched for 3 full seconds. I should go, dear. I have a meeting. After she hung up, Olive stopped the recording. She's getting nervous, starting to slip up. Good. I sat down at my desk, adding notes to our timeline. Because I just got an interesting email from the Historic Preservation Board. Olive leaned over my shoulder to read. Application denied due to unauthorized submission. Property owner verification required. She's running out of options, Olive said. What do you think she'll do next? As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Leighton. Ava's here at the house, having a heated argument with Delaney about late rent. But Delaney told me she pays on time, I said, showing Olive the message. Check your email again, Olive said suddenly. The one from the tenant association. I pulled up the message. There it was. Proof that Delaney had been making payments like clockwork, but to Ava's personal account, not the LLC. She's double dipping, Olive realised, taking rent under the table and through the company. Tax fraud, I said, adding it to our list. The IRS would love to know about that. My phone lit up again. Delaney this time. Your aunt is insisting we're late on rent, but I have all the receipts. Something feels wrong. Who actually owns this house? I showed Olive the message. Time to tell her? Not yet. Let Ava dig deeper. I texted Delaney back. Keep those receipts safe. All of them. The next morning, I woke to an email from the county clerk's office. They'd found 3 more lease agreements, all with my forged signature, all notarized by the same person. Look up that notary, Olive suggested over breakfast. 5 minutes of searching revealed the truth. The notary's license had expired 6 months before the documents were signed. She's not just lying to me, I said, pushing away my untouched coffee. She's lying to everyone, the tenants, the county, the tax office, and she thinks she's untouchable, Olive added, because who would suspect the caring aunt helping her poor, grieving niece? My phone rang. Ava again. I answered on speaker. Cassandra, I've been thinking. Maybe it's time we discuss selling the house. My blood ran cold. Selling? It's too much responsibility. I found a buyer who's willing to make a cash offer. Let me guess, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. AT, Properties wants to buy it? How did you... yes, actually. It would be simpler for everyone. I'll think about it. After hanging up, I looked at Olive. She's getting desperate. Because she knows she's losing control, Olive said. What's our next move? I opened my evidence file, now nearly bursting with documents, recordings, and testimonies. I think it's time to visit the courthouse. Winter break starts next week. And Ava? I thought about my aunt's fake concern, her calculated lies, her attempts to steal my parents' legacy piece by piece. Let her think she's winning, I said, closing my laptop, right up until she loses everything. The courthouse steps were icy as I climbed them, clutching my folder of evidence. Inside, the clerk's office smelled like old paper and coffee. Can I help you? The woman behind the counter peered at me over reading glasses. I need to see any property records filed under AT Properties LLC. I slid my ID across the counter. And anything related to this address. 20 minutes later, I sat at a research table, staring at a document that made my hands shake. A deed transfer, dated 3 months ago, with my forged signature. Ava had tried to transfer my house to her company. Excuse me, I called to the clerk. Was this deed ever registered? She checked her computer. No, it was rejected due to improper notarization. I took photos of everything, then headed to my next stop. The local bank where my parents had kept their safety deposit box. The one Ava didn't know about. The bank manager recognized me immediately. Cassandra! My goodness, you look just like your mother. Thanks, Mr. Roberts. I need to access my parents' box. Inside, I found what I was looking for. The original deed, my parents' will, and property insurance documents, all listing me as the sole owner. My phone buzzed. Delaney again. Your aunt just showed up demanding December's rent early, said she needs it for emergency repairs. I texted back, don't give her anything. Send all future payments to this address. I included the details of the new P.O. box I'd opened that morning. Next came a message from Julius. You need to hear this. Attached was an audio file. I put in my earbuds. Ava's voice came through clearly. Practically gave me the house. Poor thing's too overwhelmed with college to care. By the time she figures it out, it'll be too late. I forwarded the recording to my lawyer at the university clinic. His response was immediate. This is exactly what we needed. Ready to proceed whenever you are. Back at my car, I called Olive. The deed transfer failed, but she tried. That's attempted fraud. Perfect. What about the tenants? Already handled. New payment instructions sent. Once those checks start coming in my name instead of hers. She'll lose it, Olive finished. That's the plan. I drove to Leighton's shop next. He was under a car when I arrived, but rolled out immediately when he heard my voice. Got something for you, he said, wiping his hands on a rag. Ava's been asking around about quick sales, cash buyers, even mentioned something about overseas investors. She's planning an escape route, I realised, and there's more. He lowered his voice. She's been moving furniture out of her house. Small stuff, but expensive pieces. My sister works at the consignment shop where she's been selling it. I added this to my notes. Can your sister make a statement about the sales? Already done. Emailed it to you this morning. Back in my car, I checked my email. 3 new messages. 1 from the tax assessor's office confirming my ownership. 1 from my lawyer with draft cease and desist papers. And 1 from Ava. Darling, we need to talk about the house. I've had several offers. Call me ASAP. Instead of calling, I drove past my house. 2 moving trucks were parked outside. New tenants for the upstairs apartment, according to Delaney's latest text. My phone rang. Julius. Cassandra, she's here, talking about selling the house next week. Says she has papers ready for your signature. Let her talk, I said. Record everything. She's drinking wine on my porch, bragging about some property empire she's building. Should I keep her talking? The more she says, the better. I was about to hang up when a car screeched into my hotel parking lot. Ava's red Mercedes. She stormed toward me, face flushed. Why are the tenants suddenly sending checks to a P.O. box? What have you done? I stayed calm, phone still recording. Hello, Aunt Ava. Funny meeting you here? Don't play games with me. I've done everything for you. Managed your property, protected your interests. By forging my signature, by stealing rent money. Her face went white. You ungrateful little... Everything okay here? A police cruiser had pulled up, the officer watching us carefully. Fine, Ava said quickly, plastering on a smile. Just a family discussion. The officer nodded, but didn't drive away. We'll talk later, Ava hissed, retreating to her car. I watched her speed away, then texted Olive. She knows something's wrong. Time to move faster. Be careful, Olive replied. Cornered animals bite hardest. I looked at my phone, at the growing evidence file, at the officer still watching protectively from his cruiser. Let her bite, I whispered. I've got stronger teeth. I can explain everything, Ava said, pacing my dorm room. She'd shown up unannounced, tears streaming down her face. You have to understand, I was trying to protect you. I pressed record on my phone, hidden in my pocket. Protect me how? The house was drowning in debt. The taxes, the repairs. She dabbed her eyes with a tissue. I had to do something. Like rent it out? Yes, exactly. She grabbed my hands. The rental income saved us. Saved you. How much did you make from the rentals? Barely enough to cover expenses. She sniffled. Maybe a few hundred a month. Lie. I had the bank records showing thousands. What about the other properties? I kept my voice neutral. The Victorian on Oak? She froze. How did you... And the duplex on Maple? The townhouse on 3rd Street? Those are separate, my business ventures. Using my house as collateral? Her tears dried instantly. Who have you been talking to? The county clerk's office, the tax assessor, your tenants. You had no right. It's my house, Aunt Ava, my inheritance. She straightened up, her mask slipping. You're just a child. You have no idea how the real world works. I know, forging signatures is illegal. I did that for you. And the second mortgage you took out in my name. Her face went pale. How did you? Bank records? Amazing what they'll show you when you're the legal owner. She grabbed her purse. This conversation is over. No, it's not. Sit down. Something in my voice made her pause. The rental income, I said calmly. Where did it go? Property maintenance, obviously. Try again. I pulled out my phone, playing the recording from her conversation with her bank. You used it to pay off your gambling debts. She lunged for the phone. I stepped back. Delete that. Like you deleted the security footage of you changing the locks, or the emails from tenants with their rent receipts. You little... She caught herself. Cassandra, please. We can work this out. I'm family. Family doesn't steal from family. I can pay you back. With what money? The cash you've been moving offshore. Her eyes widened. Who told you? Your banker. He's very chatty when presented with evidence of fraud. A knock at the door made us both jump. Olive entered, followed by my lawyer from the university clinic. Ms. Thornton, he said formally, I am representing your niece in this matter. Ava's face hardened. She doesn't need representation. This is a family issue. Criminal fraud is hardly a family issue. He opened his briefcase. We have documented evidence of multiple felonies, including forgery, theft, and tax evasion. You're bluffing. The FBI doesn't bluff about wire fraud. He laid out documents on my desk. Shall we discuss the international transfers? Ava grabbed her coat. I don't have to listen to this. Actually, I said, you do. Because in about an hour, the sheriff will be serving you with papers, and not just eviction notices. You wouldn't dare. Try me. She looked around wildly, like a trapped animal. I'll tell everyone what an ungrateful brat you are, how you turned on your own aunt. Go ahead. I nodded to Olive, who was still recording. Add slander to the charges. Your mother would be ashamed of you. That hit hard, but I didn't flinch. My mother would be ashamed of you, using her death to steal from her daughter? I'm leaving. She yanked open the door. One more thing, I called after her. The Historic Preservation Board, they're very interested in the forged applications. Apparently, that's a federal offence. She slammed the door so hard the walls shook. My lawyer gathered his papers. That went well. She admitted to multiple crimes on recording. Will it be enough? Olive asked, combined with our other evidence. More than enough. He checked his watch. The sheriff should be at her house now with the court orders. I sank into my chair, suddenly exhausted. What happens next? She'll be served with multiple notices. Eviction from your property, cease and desist on all rental activities, and a court summons for the criminal charges. And the house? Is safely yours. I've already filed injunctions preventing any property transfers or new leases. After he left, Olive hugged me. You okay? I looked at my phone, buzzing with messages from Delaney, Julius, and Leighton, all reporting that sheriff's deputies had arrived at various properties. No, I said honestly, but I will be. She's not getting away with this, Olive said firmly. No, I agreed, watching another text come in, this one from the sheriff himself. She's really not. I sat in my car across from my childhood home, watching the sheriff's cruiser pull into the driveway. Ava's Mercedes was already there, along with 2 other cars I didn't recognise. Probably her lawyer and real estate agent, desperately trying to salvage something from the wreckage. My phone buzzed. Olive. Everything okay? About to be, I texted back. Sheriff Russell, a tall man with grey hair and steady eyes, approached the front door. 2 deputies flanked him. He knocked firmly. Ava answered, her designer outfit and perfect makeup a stark contrast to her panicked expression. Can I help you? Miss Thornton? He held out a yellow envelope. You're being served with an immediate eviction notice and criminal complaint. This is ridiculous. She tried to close the door. The sheriff's boot blocked it. Ma'am, you need to take these documents. I have rights. This is my property. Actually, I said, walking up the driveway, it's mine. Ava's face contorted. You set this up. No, Aunt Ava, you set yourself up. The sheriff handed her another document. This is a court order freezing all assets related to AT Properties, LLC. You can't do this, she turned to her lawyer, who was looking increasingly uncomfortable. Tell them, he shook his head. Miss Thornton, I advised you last week to cease all property operations. You didn't listen. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit is very interested in those offshore transfers, I added quietly. Her real estate agent slipped away to her car. Smart woman. You have 30 minutes to collect essential personal items, Sheriff Russell said. Then you need to vacate the premises. Where am I supposed to go? That's not our concern, Ma'am. Ava turned to me, tears starting again. Cassandra, please, we can work something out. I'll pay it all back. Like you paid back the second mortgage? Or the credit cards you opened in my name? Her tears vanished. You ungrateful little witch. I gave up everything to help you. Help me? I pulled out my phone. Should we play the recordings again? The ones where you brag about stealing my inheritance? Deputies, the sheriff called, please escort Miss Thornton inside to collect her belongings. I watched as they led her in, her protest echoing through the house that had once held so many happy memories. Delaney appeared on the porch. Is it true, everything she did? I nodded. I'm sorry you got caught in the middle of this. Don't be, we had no idea. She hesitated. What happens to us now? You can stay until your lease ends. New rental agreement directly with me. No more dealing with Ava or her company. Relief flooded her face. Thank you. Leighton's truck pulled up. He got out with Julius, both looking grimly satisfied. Just got word, Leighton said. Sheriff's deputies are serving papers at the other properties too. The whole scheme's coming down. Ava emerged with a small suitcase, the deputies close behind. She stopped when she saw everyone watching. You're all going to regret this, she spat. I'll sue every one of you. With what money? Julius asked calmly. The money you stole? The money you gambled away? Or the money you tried to hide overseas? The FBI has some questions about that, Sheriff Russell added. They'll be in touch very soon. Ava's lawyer touched her arm. Don't say another word. Let's go. She yanked away from him. This house belongs to me. I put everything into it. No, I said firmly. You took everything from it. There's a difference. The deputies moved closer. Sheriff Russell's voice hardened. Ms. Thornton, leave now or we'll add resisting a court order to your charges. Finally, her shoulders slumped. Without another word, she got into her Mercedes and drove away. The sheriff turned to me. You'll need to change the locks, and I'd recommend installing security cameras. Already ordered, Leighton said. I'll install them myself. I looked at my house. My house, finally and truly mine again. Thank you, all of you. Your parents would be proud, Julius said quietly. Standing up for yourself like this. My phone buzzed. Olive. Well? I texted back. It's done. She's gone. Then I walked up to my front door, took out my old key, the one Ava never knew I'd kept, and went inside. The house smelled different, felt different, but underneath it all was still home. Another text from Olive. You okay? I looked around at the rooms that held my childhood, at the walls that had witnessed both love and betrayal, and typed, No, but I will be, because this time justice won. The certified letter arrived during finals week. I recognised Ava's lawyer's firm on the return address. "She's counter-suing," Olive said, watching me open it. "Just like you predicted." I scanned the documents and started laughing. "What's funny?" "She's claiming emotional distress and defamation. Says I maliciously damaged her reputation by exposing her crimes." "Can she do that?" "She can try." I pulled out my phone to call my lawyer. "But I've got something she doesn't know about." He answered on the first ring. "I assume you received the lawsuit?" "Yes. Time to use the recording?" "Absolutely. I'll file our counter-response today." I hung up and turned to Olive. "Remember that conversation I had with her banker? The one where he admitted helping her hide money?" "He didn't just admit it. He gave me proof. Documentation of every transfer, every hidden account. He's turning state's evidence to save himself." My phone buzzed. Delaney. "FBI agents just left. Showed them everything about the rent payments and fake leases." Another text from Julius. "Federal investigators went through Ava's house today. Found shredded documents in her fireplace. They're reconstructing them." "It's all falling apart for her," Olive said. "Good." I started packing my bag. "Ready for a road trip?" 2 hours later, we pulled into my driveway. Leighton was installing the last security camera. "Perfect timing," he called down from the ladder. "Wait till you see inside." The house smelled like fresh paint and furniture polish. The living room walls were now a soft grey, my mother's favourite colour. "Delaney and her roommates helped," Leighton explained. "Said it was the least they could do." I ran my hand along the wall. "It's perfect. There's more," he said, leading us to the kitchen. "Look what we found behind the cabinet Ava installed." There, in a small alcove, was my mother's old recipe box, the one that had disappeared after the funeral. "She couldn't even let me have this," I whispered, opening it. Inside were all the handwritten cards: Sunday pot roast, birthday cake, Christmas cookies. "But now you do," Olive said firmly. My phone rang, the lawyer again. "Great news," he said. "The FBI just froze all of Ava's accounts. They found evidence of tax evasion going back 5 years." "Before my parents died?" "Yes. This wasn't just about your inheritance. It was a pattern." After hanging up, I sat at the kitchen counter, the same spot where I'd done homework while Mum cooked. "Want to know something weird?" I said to Olive. "I thought getting revenge would feel better, more satisfying." "Doesn't it?" "No. It feels..." I searched for the words. "It feels like finally locking a door that should have been locked ages ago." A knock interrupted us. Sheriff Russell stood in the doorway. "Thought you should know," he said. "Ava was just arrested trying to board a flight to the Cayman Islands." "Let me guess, one-way ticket?" He nodded. "She's facing federal charges now, no bail." After he left, Olive and I went up to my old bedroom. The walls still held traces of the butterfly stickers I'd loved as a kid. "You going to stay here?" she asked, "after graduation?" "No." I looked out the window at the maple tree where Dad had built my treehouse. "But I'm not selling either. This house deserves better tenants, better memories." "Like Delaney?" "Like Delaney. And maybe someday, when I'm ready, I'll come back. But not yet." My phone buzzed one last time. An email from Ava's lawyer. She was withdrawing her lawsuit. "Smart move," Olive said, reading over my shoulder. "She's got bigger problems now." I closed my email and opened Mum's recipe box instead. On top was her signature chocolate chip cookie recipe, the edges worn from use. "Want to make cookies?" I asked Olive. "In your kitchen? With your Mum's recipe?" "Yeah." I smiled, really smiled, for the first time in what felt like forever. "I think it's time this house smelled like home again." As we gathered ingredients, I thought about Ava sitting in her jail cell, about all her schemes crumbling, about justice finally being served. But mostly I thought about Mom. about how she always said the best revenge was living well. You know what? I said, measuring flour into a bowl. Mum was right. About what? Everything. I cracked an egg just like Mum had taught me. But especially about karma. It always comes around. The kitchen filled with the smell of vanilla and melting chocolate, erasing the last traces of Ava's presence. Outside, the maple tree swayed in the breeze, its leaves whispering secrets only this house would ever know.
The look on Emma's face when she saw me at her graduation ceremony said everything. Her eyes narrowed, jaw tightening as she approached me in her cap and gown. "What are you doing in the front row?" she asked, her voice cold. "Those seats are for family. I'm David Mitchell, and at 45, I've spent the last 12 years being Emma's stepfather, or at least trying to be." Standing there in my best suit, clutching the bouquet of sunflowers she once told me were her favorite, I felt my heart sink. "I am family, Emma," I said softly, but she was already shaking her head. "No, you're just the guy my mom married. My real dad is coming, and he needs this seat." She glanced over her shoulder, scanning the crowd. "You can sit in the back. There's plenty of room there." I watched as she waved enthusiastically to someone behind me. Tom, her biological father, strode up in his expensive suit, perfect hair, and practiced smile. The same man who'd missed her school plays, forgotten her birthdays, and disappeared for months at a time throughout her childhood. But he was her real dad. "Princess," he called out, wrapping her in a hug. "Your big day is finally here." I quietly gathered my things and moved to the back row, just as Emma had suggested. From there, I could see everything. How she beamed at Tom, how she introduced him proudly to her friends, how she pretended not to notice me at all. My wife Sarah squeezed my hand as I sat down beside her. "She's just excited to see Tom," she whispered. "You know how she gets when he's around." I did know. I'd watched for 12 years as Emma chased after Tom's approval, making excuses for his absences, cherishing the rare moments he decided to show up. Meanwhile, I was there every day, helping with homework, attending her soccer games, holding her when she cried after Tom missed another holiday. The ceremony began, and I watched as Emma walked across the stage to receive her diploma. My chest swelled with pride despite everything. I remembered the late nights helping her study for calculus, the weekends spent practicing her valedictorian speech, the countless college applications we reviewed together at the kitchen table. As she delivered her speech, I mouthed the words along with her. Not because I'd helped her write it, but because I'd heard her practice it so many times in her room when she thought no one was listening. She was brilliant, passionate, and determined, everything I'd hoped she'd become. After the ceremony, I waited at the back of the crowd as Emma posed for pictures with Tom. He draped his arm around her shoulders, playing the part of the proud father perfectly. I clutched a small envelope in my pocket, wondering if I should even bother giving it to her. "David," Sarah called out, "come take a picture with Emma." Emma's smile faltered as I approached. "Mom, we've taken enough pictures. Besides, Dad and I are going to lunch to celebrate." Tom checked his watch, his expression shifting. "Actually, Princess, something's come up at work. Rain check." I watched the familiar disappointment flash across Emma's face before she covered it with a practiced smile. "Of course, Dad. I understand. Work is important." As Tom hurried away with promises to make it up to her, I saw Emma's shoulders slump slightly, the same way they had every time he let her down over the years. But this time was different. This time, I had something to show her. "Emma," I said, stepping forward. "Before you go, there's something I need to tell you. Something I've been keeping secret for the past 10 years. She turned to me, her expression guarded. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone and opened my email, finding the message I'd received just that morning. "Remember when you were 12, and you wanted to go to that prestigious science camp, but Tom said he couldn't afford it?" "Yeah," she said slowly. "Mom said we couldn't manage it either." "You went anyway," I continued, "because they offered you a scholarship." She nodded, confusion crossing her face. "What about it?" "It wasn't exactly a scholarship, Emma. I've been secretly funding your dreams for the past 10 years, making sure you had every opportunity to succeed. The science camp, the soccer tournaments, the academic competitions, I made anonymous donations to ensure you could participate in all of them. Emma's eyes widened, but I wasn't finished. I handed her the envelope from my pocket. And this is my final gift. Open it. Her hands trembled slightly as she tore open the envelope. Inside was a letter confirming that her college tuition had been paid in full. Anonymously, of course. Just like everything else I'd done for her over the years. But? How? She whispered, staring at the letter. Why? Because that's what fathers do, Emma. Real ones, anyway. Emma stared at the letter, her hands shaking. The bustling crowd of graduates and families around us seemed to fade away as she processed what I just revealed. Her mouth opened and closed several times before she finally found her voice. I don't understand, she said, looking up at me. You've been doing this since I was 12. All those opportunities, they were you. I nodded, watching her face carefully. Every single one. The summer robotics program you loved so much. I worked extra shifts at the engineering firm to cover it. Those special art classes you wanted to try? I sold my vintage car collection. When you needed a new laptop for your coding projects, I picked up weekend consulting work. But, she glanced at the graduation crowds, then back at me. Why didn't you ever tell me? Because I didn't want you to feel obligated to love me, I said simply. I wanted you to have every chance to pursue your dreams without feeling like you owed me anything in return. Sarah stepped forward, her eyes glistening. David, you never told me about any of this. The extra work, the car collection. I knew you'd try to stop me. I smiled at my wife. You'd say it was too much, that we should split the costs with Tom. But I wanted to do this. Emma deserved every opportunity, regardless of who her real dad was. Emma's face crumpled slightly at those words, her own words thrown back at her. She looked down at the college tuition letter again, her fingers tracing over the amount. It was substantial, representing years of careful saving and planning on my part. The anonymous donor who funded the girls' coding initiative at my high school, she said slowly, realization dawning. That was you too, wasn't it? I shrugged. You were so passionate about getting more girls into STEM. I couldn't let that dream die just because the school didn't have the budget. And my first computer, the one that mysteriously showed up on my birthday when Tom, forgot again. You need it for your programming classes, I said softly. I couldn't bear to see you disappointed on your birthday. Again. Emma's lower lip trembled. The emergency fund that helped Jessica's family when her mom got sick. The one that meant she didn't have to drop out and could stay your lab partner. I nodded. You were so worried about losing your best friend. It seemed like the right thing to do. All this time, she whispered, I thought it was just luck. Random acts of kindness from strangers. But it was you. It was always you. The crowd around us had thinned considerably, families heading off to their celebration lunches. Emma looked around, suddenly seeming to notice Tom's absence again. But this time, instead of disappointment, there was something else in her expression, understanding. You know what the worst part is? She said, her voice thick with emotion. I remember telling you about every single one of these things, excitedly sharing the good news when these mysterious opportunities came up. And you just smiled. You celebrated with me like you were hearing it for the first time. Your joy was all I needed, I replied. Seeing you light up, watching you succeed, that was worth every sacrifice. Emma clutched the letter to her chest, tears finally spilling over. But I've been so awful to you, all these years, pushing you away, insisting you weren't my real father. And you just kept loving me, supporting me. Why? Because that's what parents do, Emma. Real parents. We love our children unconditionally, even when they push us away. Even when it hurts. We keep showing up, keep trying, keep supporting, whether they know about it or not. Sarah wrapped her arm around my waist, leaning into me. David's right, honey. Being a real parent isn't about biology. It's about being there, day after day, in all the ways that matter. Emma looked at us both, really looked at us, perhaps for the first time seeing the truth that had been in front of her all along. Then, without warning, she stepped forward and threw her arms around me. I'm so sorry, she sobbed into my shoulder. I'm so sorry. I held her close, feeling the walls she'd built between us finally starting to crumble. You have nothing to be sorry for, I whispered. Nothing at all. That evening, after the graduation celebrations had wound down, Emma sat with me in our backyard. The same backyard where I pushed her on the swing set, taught her to ride a bike, and helped her with countless science projects. The fairy lights we'd strung up years ago still twinkled overhead, casting a warm glow over us. I found something in my room earlier, she said, pulling out a worn notebook. Remember this? I smiled, recognizing the purple cover immediately. Your dream journal. You started it when you were 13. She opened it carefully, revealing pages filled with her teenage handwriting. I was reading through it, and I noticed something. Every single dream I wrote down in here, you helped make it come true, even the silly ones. She flipped through the pages. Like this, I wish I could go to space camp. 2 months later, I got that lucky scholarship. And here, I want to learn to play guitar, but lessons are too expensive. Then that guitar showed up at Christmas, supposedly from the whole family. You have a good memory, I said softly. No, she shook her head. I have a selective memory. I remembered all the good things that happened, but I chose to forget who was really behind them. It was easier to keep pushing you away when I didn't acknowledge everything you did for me. She turned to another page. But you know what really got me? This entry from when I was 15. I wish my real dad would come to my science fair. Her voice cracked slightly. You didn't show up, but you did. You took off work early and sat in a front row, grinning like I'd just won a Nobel Prize. Your project on renewable energy was brilliant, I reminded her. You deserve to have someone there cheering you on. Emma closed the journal, running her fingers over its worn cover. Earlier today, after Tom left, I called him. Asked him why he never seemed to have time for me growing up. I tensed, preparing myself for whatever pain his response had caused her. You know what he said? She continued, her voice steady. He said he knew I was in good hands, that he saw how much you cared for me, how much you were doing for me. He said he stepped back because he couldn't compete with the father you were being. Emma, I never meant to replace him. I know, she interrupted. But you did something better. You showed me what a real father is. Not someone who shares my DNA, but someone who shares my dreams, who fights for them as hard as I do, maybe even harder. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small package. I got this for you today, after everything. It's not much, but I unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a photo frame, and when I turned it over, my breath caught in my throat. It was a picture from her science fair, one I'd never seen before. In it, I was watching her present her project, my face filled with unmistakable pride. Written across the bottom in her handwriting were the words, "To my real dad, thank you for showing me what that truly means." Emma, I whispered, touching the glass gently. I was so focused on having a real father that I couldn't see I already had one, she said, wiping tears from her cheeks. One who didn't just show up for the big moments, but created them. Who didn't just say he was proud of me, but proved it every single day. Sarah appeared at the back door, smiling at us through happy tears. Dinner's ready if you two can pause the emotional breakthroughs for a few minutes. Emma stood up, offering me her hand. Actually, Mom, I was thinking maybe we could go out to celebrate. All three of us, as a family, a real one. Over dinner at our local Italian restaurant, the same one where we'd celebrated Emma's first science fair win. We talked and laughed like we hadn't in years. Emma shared her plans for college, her eyes shining with excitement as she described the engineering program she'd be starting in the fall. You know, she said, twirling pasta on her fork, all those anonymous donations over the years, they didn't just help me. They showed me the kind of person I want to be, someone who lifts others up, who gives without expecting anything in return. Sarah reached across the table, squeezing my hand. That's exactly who your father is. Emma nodded, and this time when she said father, I knew she meant me. Which is why I've decided to start a scholarship fund at my high school. For girls interested in STEM, and I want to name it after you, Dad. The word dad from her lips made my heart swell. After 12 years of David or just avoiding addressing me at all, this simple word meant everything. You don't have to do that, I said. I know, she smiled. But I want to. Because real fathers teach their children not just to chase their dreams, but to help others chase theirs too. And you've taught me that better than anyone. As we drove home that night, Emma fell asleep in the backseat, just like she used to when she was little. Looking at her in the rearview mirror, I saw both the little girl she had been and the amazing woman she was becoming. Sometimes the greatest gifts we give our children aren't the ones they can see, but the examples we set through our actions. And sometimes the love we give silently, without recognition or reward, speaks the loudest of all. You're ruining our family name. Amanda screamed, her perfectly manicured finger jabbing the air inches from my face. The Prescotts don't associate with street people. Her voice dripped with disgust as she paced our living room in her designer heels. I stood my ground, though my hands were shaking. They're human beings who need help, Amanda. The shelter is already making a difference in their lives. My name is Olivia, and at 32, I never expected to be facing down my mother-in-law over opening a homeless shelter. But here we were, her face red with fury, while my husband Michael sat silently on the couch, avoiding eye contact. Making a difference? Amanda scoffed. You're bringing shame to this family. Do you know how it looks when people find out a Prescott is running a shelter in that disgusting part of town? My friends at the country club can't stop talking about it. I thought about the families I'd helped that week, the single mother who'd finally found a safe place to sleep with her kids, the elderly veteran who needed a warm meal. I don't care what your country club friends think. Michael. Amanda turned to her son, her voice shifting to the manipulative tone I'd grown to hate. Darling, you have to do something about this. Your father is beside himself. The family reputation. The family reputation will survive, I cut in. In fact, it might even improve if people see the Prescotts actually helping the community instead of just talking about it at charity galas. Amanda's eyes narrowed. How dare you? We've donated millions to this city. To proper charities, not some flophouse you've cobbled together. Proper charities? I couldn't help but laugh. You mean the ones where you get to wear expensive dresses and take photos for social media? When was the last time you actually helped someone in need? Michael? Amanda's voice turned ice cold. It's time to choose. Either she stops this ridiculous project, or you need to think very carefully about your position in this family. Finally, Michael spoke, his voice quiet. Liv, maybe we should think about this. The shelter is taking up all your time, and Mom's right about how it looks. I stared at him, this man I'd loved for 10 years, feeling something break inside me. How it looks, that's what you're worried about. The Prescott name means something in this city, he said, standing up to join his mother. We have responsibilities, appearances to maintain. Appearances, I echoed. Well, here's how it looks to me. My husband and his mother care more about their country club reputation than helping people who've lost everything. Amanda smirked, victory written all over her face. Well, if that's how you see it, perhaps it's best if you step away from the family entirely. Michael can find someone more suitable. I looked between them, Amanda in her perfectly pressed designer outfit, Michael in his tailored suit, both of them so concerned about their precious family name. 10 years of marriage, and I finally saw them clearly. You know what? You're right. I pulled off my wedding ring, the massive diamond that Amanda had insisted was appropriate for a Prescott wife. I will step away, but the shelter stays open. You can't, Amanda started, but I cut her off. I can, and I will. The shelter is in my name, funded by my inheritance from my grandmother. You have no say in it. Michael stepped forward, looking uncertain for the first time. Liv, don't be dramatic. We can talk about this. There's nothing to talk about, I said, placing the ring on the coffee table. Your mother's right. I'm not suitable for this family, and I'm starting to think this family isn't suitable for me. I walked out of that house with nothing but my car keys and my dignity. Behind me, I could hear Amanda's triumphant voice. Finally. Now we can find you someone appropriate, darling. That night, I slept in my office at the shelter, listening to the rain against the windows. Tears came, of course. 10 years of marriage doesn't end without pain. But mixed with the grief was something unexpected, relief. The next morning, I threw myself into work. The shelter needed expanding, and now I had nothing holding me back. No more fancy dinners to attend, no more disapproving looks from Amanda, no more compromising my values to maintain appearances. I didn't know it then, but walking away from the Prescott name would turn out to be the best decision I ever made. And 5 years later, when Amanda showed up at my shelter's door, she wouldn't even recognize the strong, independent woman her former daughter-in-law had become. But that night, curled up on my office couch, all I knew was that I'd chosen my path. The Prescott family name might mean everything in their world, but in mine, the only name that mattered was the one on the shelter's sign. Haven House, where everyone belongs. Little did Amanda know, her precious family reputation would soon mean nothing at all. 5 years passed in a blur of growth and change. Haven House expanded from a single shelter to 3 locations across the city, each offering not just beds but job training, medical care, and education programs. I barely thought about my old life anymore. The country club parties and designer clothes seemed like scenes from someone else's story. Until one rainy Tuesday evening in October. I was doing my usual evening rounds at our newest location when Maria, one of our staff members, caught my attention. "Liv, there's someone you should see. A woman's been sleeping in her car behind the building for 3 nights. She won't come in, says she's just resting." I grabbed an umbrella and headed out to the parking lot. In the dim light, I could make out a luxury car, a Mercedes, but an older model, clearly not maintained recently. Through the foggy windows, I could see someone huddled in the back seat. I knocked gently on the window. "Ma'am, would you like to come inside? We have warm beds and hot food." The window rolled down just a crack, and a familiar voice replied, "I'm fine. Just resting." My heart stopped. Even exhausted and afraid, I'd recognize that voice anywhere. Amanda Prescott, my former mother-in-law, was sleeping in her car behind my homeless shelter. She didn't recognize me in the dark, wearing my casual clothes and rain jacket, so different from the polished daughter-in-law she'd known. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "It's not safe to sleep in your car," I said gently. "We have private rooms available. No questions asked." The window rolled down further, and I could see her clearly now. Amanda's perfectly dyed hair was growing out, showing gray roots. Her designer outfit was wrinkled and worn. But it was her eyes that struck me. The proud, judgmental woman I'd known was gone, replaced by someone scared and desperate. I couldn't possibly," she whispered. I'm not homeless. I'm just having a temporary setback." I bit back the urge to remind her of her own words from years ago about street people. Instead, I said, "Many of our guests are experiencing temporary setbacks. There's no shame in accepting help." Thunder rolled overhead, and rain began falling harder. Amanda jumped at the sound, looking more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. "Perhaps just for tonight," she conceded. I helped her gather her belongings, a single suitcase and a designer handbag that had seen better days. As we walked inside, I noticed her limping slightly in her expensive but impractical shoes. Maria met us at the door with warm towels and a sympathetic smile. She'd been homeless herself once, before becoming one of our most dedicated staff members. "Welcome to Haven House," she said warmly. "I'm Maria, and this is our director, Olivia." Amanda's head snapped up at my name, really looking at me for the first time. I saw the moment recognition hit her. Her eyes widened, and she swayed slightly on her feet. "You," she whispered. "Let's get you settled first," I said firmly. "We can talk later." I led her to one of our private rooms, basic but clean and safe. Amanda stood in the doorway, clutching her handbag like a shield. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "Why would you help me after everything?" I thought about the cruel words she'd spoken years ago, about family names and reputations. I thought about Michael, who I'd heard had married someone more suitable barely 6 months after our divorce. "Because everyone deserves help," I said simply, "even people who once refused to give it to others." Tears filled her eyes, but she blinked them back. "Some habits die hard. I suppose Prescotts don't cry in public." "The family," she started, then stopped, swallowing hard. "Things change after the scandal. The investments, the properties, it's all gone. Michael moved to Europe with his new wife. I tried staying with friends, but you don't have to explain," I interrupted gently. "Get some rest. We'll talk more tomorrow." As I turned to leave, her voice stopped me. "Olivia, I was wrong. About everything. I see that now." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. 5 years ago, I would have given anything to hear those words. Now, they were just sad. Back in my office, I looked up the scandal she'd mentioned. The headlines told the story. "Prescott Empire crumbles under federal investigation." The family's centuries-old wealth, it seemed, had been built on fraud and tax evasion. When it all came crashing down, the precious family name became worthless overnight. I thought about karma, about justice, about the strange ways life comes full circle. But mostly, I thought about the scared woman in room 114 who'd lost everything she once thought important and found herself seeking help from the very person she'd once despised. Tomorrow, I'd offer her the same things we offered all our guests: support, resources, a chance to rebuild. Not because she deserved it more than others, but because she deserved it just as much. After all, Heaven House was where everyone belongs, even former mothers-in-law who needed to learn that lesson the hard way. The next morning, I saw Amanda sitting alone in the dining room, looking into her coffee. She was trying to stay strong. Her hair was neatly combed, her clothes tidy, but she couldn't hide the sadness in her eyes. "Good morning," I said as I sat across from her. "Did you sleep okay?" She gave a short nod. The room was fine. Then she added quietly, "Thank you." "Do you want to talk about why you're here?" I asked gently. Amanda held her coffee cup tightly. "After the scandal, everything fell apart. Our bank accounts were frozen. The houses were taken. Michael," she paused, swallowing hard, "said he couldn't help. His new wife's lifestyle, you know." I felt a strange mix of emotions. Amanda Prescott, once proud and powerful, was now here, in a place she used to look down on. "What about your friends from the country club?" I asked. She gave a bitter smile. "They all disappeared. Said they were too busy or their guest rooms were being renovated." She gave a dry laugh. The same excuses I used to give others. I looked at her, remembering how she once judged people like me. Life has a way of teaching us empathy. "You must be enjoying this," she said softly. "I'm really not," I told her. "What I enjoy is helping people rebuild their lives. That's what we do here. And if you're ready, we can help you too." For the first time, she looked at me not as her former daughter-in-law, but as someone who might actually help. "I don't know how," she said. "I don't really have any skills. The only thing I was ever good at was being a Prescott." "Then it's time to learn who Amanda is without the Prescott name," I said, opening a folder. "We have training programs, classes about money, housing support. Where would you like to start?" Over the next few months, Amanda began to change. It wasn't easy. She struggled with computers, got frustrated during job training, and didn't like sharing a bathroom. But she didn't give up. The big change came during our holiday dinner program. Amanda, now working part-time as a receptionist, helped serve food. I watched her smile at people, talk with them, learn their names. "They're just people," she told me later, amazed. All this time I thought, but they're just people who need help. "That's what I tried to tell you 5 years ago," I said. She looked down. "I was so wrong, Olivia. About everything. About you. I treated you terribly. The past is past," I said. "What matters is what you do now." And she did a lot. As her confidence grew, Amanda became one of our most helpful volunteers. She used her event planning skills to organize donations and used her social contacts to bring in support. 1 year after arriving at Haven House, Amanda moved into her own small apartment. It wasn't a mansion, but she looked truly happy there. On her last night at the shelter, she gave me an envelope. Inside was a letter to the board, praising Haven House. She signed it with her maiden name. "I'm not a Prescott anymore," she said. "I'm just Amanda Turner now, and I'm finally okay with that." I smiled, thinking of my own journey. Sometimes we have to lose everything to discover who we really are. "You always knew who you were," she said softly. "I'm sorry I didn't see it before." Now, Amanda runs our volunteer program. She tells her story to people who never thought homelessness could happen to them. She especially connects with those who once had wealth and now feel ashamed. Michael called once, years later. He had heard his mother was working at a homeless shelter and couldn't believe it. I think he came expecting to see her sad and broken. Instead, he saw her leading a volunteer meeting, full of energy and purpose. "She seems different," he said. "She is different," I replied. He left without talking to her. When I told Amanda, she wasn't surprised. "The Michael I raised wouldn't understand who I've become," she said. "Maybe that's my biggest failure as a mother and my best chance to do better now." Sometimes at night, I think about the day Amanda first came to Haven House. We've both come so far. Me from a daughter-in-law who just wanted approval. Her from a woman who cared more about image than people. Haven House has grown too. We now have 5 locations, each helping different groups. Amanda's story even inspired a program just for older women facing sudden homelessness. Where everyone belongs isn't just our motto anymore. It's something we both believe deep in our hearts. Even a Prescott. Especially a Prescott. Don't want mommy. Mommy bad. Emma screamed, her tiny face contorted with fear as I reached to hug her. My 3-year-old daughter pressed herself against my mother-in-law's legs, trembling. The rejection hit me like a physical blow. See? Patricia, my mother-in-law, smiled smugly. She knows who really loves her. Don't force yourself on her when she's clearly scared of you. My name is Olivia Parker, and 6 months ago, my daughter stopped loving me. It happened so gradually, I almost didn't notice at first. Small things. Emma not running to greet me after work, refusing to let me read her bedtime stories, crying when I tried to hold her. I told myself it was just a phase, that toddlers go through periods of preferring one caregiver over another. But this felt different. This felt orchestrated. Maybe if you weren't always working, she'd remember who her mother is, Patricia would say, stroking Emma's hair while my daughter clung to her. Some women just aren't meant to be mothers. I'm a pediatric nurse working 3 12-hour shifts per week. My husband James works in it, and his unpredictable schedule meant we needed help with childcare. Patricia had volunteered, moving into our guest room temporarily after her lease ended. That was 8 months ago. The changes in Emma started shortly after. Tonight, as I stood in our living room watching my daughter recoil from my touch, something inside me snapped. Emma, sweetheart, it's mommy. You used to love when I hugged you, remember? No. Emma shrieked. Grandma says you're evil. You hurt me. The room went silent. James, who had been absorbed in his laptop, finally looked up. What did you just say, princess? Patricia quickly scooped Emma up. She's tired, aren't you, sweetie? All this drama is upsetting her. I'll put her to bed. Like hell you will, I said, my voice shaking. Emma, what does Grandma say about mommy? But Patricia was already hurrying upstairs, whispering in Emma's ear. I turned to James, who looked uncomfortable. Did you hear what she said? Your mother is poisoning our daughter against me. Liv, come on, James sighed. Mom's been a huge help with Emma. Maybe if you spent more time with her instead of picking fights. 3 shifts a week, James. I work 3 shifts a week to help support our family. Your mother's turned our daughter against me in the time I'm gone. He shook his head. You're being paranoid. Mom loves Emma. She'd never. I didn't let him finish. Instead, I pulled out my phone and played the recording I'd made earlier that day. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but I'd forgotten my phone in Emma's room during nap time. The audio capture was crystal clear. Sweet girl, you know mommy doesn't really love you, right? Patricia's voice crooned. She leaves you all the time because she doesn't want you. But Grandma's here. Grandma's your real mommy now. Remember what I told you? Mommy is evil. She wants to take you away from Grandma. James's face went pale as the recording continued, capturing his mother methodically turning my child against me. When it ended, he sat there in stunned silence. That's not possible, he stammered. Mom wouldn't? I have more, I said quietly. I started recording after Emma had a meltdown last week when I tried to take her to the park. I knew something wasn't right. I played another clip, this one from 2 days ago. Good girl, telling mommy no. You don't want her hugs. They're bad hugs, remember? Grandma's hugs are safe. Mommy just pretends to love you. Stop, James whispered. Please stop. Footsteps on the stairs made us both look up. Patricia stood there, her face a mask of concern. Emma's finally asleep, poor thing. Really, Olivia, you need to learn to respect her boundaries when she says no too. The sound of her voice, that fake sweetness, made my blood boil. Like you respected boundaries when you systematically taught my daughter to fear me? Patricia's eyes widened in fake innocence. I don't know what you're talking about. James, your wife is obviously having some sort of episode. Save it, Mom. James cut her off. We heard the recordings. The change in Patricia's demeanor was instant. The sweet smile vanished, replaced by something harder, colder. You're recording me? In my own home? This is our home, I corrected her, where you've been systematically abusing our daughter by turning her against me. Abuse? Patricia laughed, but there was an edge of panic in it. I've done nothing but love that child while you gallivant off to work, leaving her with virtual strangers. I'm her mother. A mother who's never here. Someone needed to step up to give her real love. Get out. James's voice was quiet but firm. Pack your bags and get out of our house. Patricia stared at him, mouth opening and closing like a fish. You can't be serious. After everything I've done for you, for Emma. Everything you've done? James stood up, his hands shaking. You've traumatized my daughter and emotionally abused my wife. Get out. I watched my mother-in-law's face contort with rage. Fine, she spat, but don't think this is over. Emma needs me. You'll see, she won't survive without me here. As Patricia stormed upstairs to pack, I sank onto the couch, tears finally falling. James sat beside me, his head in his hands. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I should have seen it. Should have believed you. It's not your fault, I said, though part of me wanted to scream that yes, it was. He should have noticed, should have stopped it sooner. But right now, we had bigger concerns. James, what she's done to Emma. Our baby needs help. He nodded, pulling out his phone. I'll start researching child psychologists tonight. We'll find someone who specializes in parental alienation. A crash from upstairs made us both jump. Then came Emma's terrified scream, Grandma, want Grandma. As we raced upstairs, I knew this was just the beginning. Getting Patricia out of our house was the first step, but undoing the damage she'd done to our daughter, that would be the real battle. And I was ready to fight. It took 3 stressful days and dozens of phone calls to find the right child psychologist. We finally found Dr. Sarah Martinez, who was kind and gentle. She had experience helping kids who had been emotionally manipulated. Her office was calm and cozy, filled with toys and soft colors. It felt like a safe place, unlike our home lately. The past few days had been awful. Emma had been having more tantrums since Patricia left. She refused to eat anything I made or let me help her get dressed or brush her teeth. Every time she pushed me away, it broke my heart. During our first session, Dr. Martinez sat near Emma, who was playing quietly with a doll, sitting as far away from me as she could. Has Grandma hurt you, sweetheart? Dr. Martinez asked gently. Emma held the doll tightly and replied, Grandma loves me. Mommy hurts. Her words sounded practiced and made my chest tighten with pain. How does Mommy hurt you? Dr. Martinez asked softly. Emma looked confused. I don't know, but Grandma said. Dr. Martinez nodded and wrote in her notebook. What else did Grandma say about Mommy? As Emma repeated the awful things Patricia had told her, I squeezed James's hand so tightly it hurt. Everything became clear. Patricia had been slowly turning Emma against me. Mommy leaves because she doesn't want me, Emma said. Grandma says only bad mommies leave. Do you remember doing fun things with Mommy? Dr. Martinez asked. Like going to the park or reading books. Emma hesitated. I don't know. That's because your mother-in-law has replaced your happy memories with fake ones, Dr. Martinez told us later, after Emma fell asleep. This kind of manipulation is common in cases like this. James's voice shook as he asked, How do we fix it? It will take time, but she's still young, Dr. Martinez said. We can help her, but we have to start now. She gave us a plan, therapy for Emma twice a week, family sessions, and steps to rebuild trusts. She also warned us to keep records in case we needed to go to court. Your mother-in-law's behavior counts as psychological abuse, she said, and because of her threats about Emma not surviving without her, we have to protect your family legally. That night, while James started paperwork for a restraining order, my phone buzzed with texts from Patricia. Emma cried for me all night, didn't she? You're cruel, keeping her from the only real mother she's known. She'll never love you again. I made sure of that. I blocked her, but her words stayed in my mind. What if she was right? What if I'd already lost my daughter? The next morning, I took a day off work to follow Dr. Martinez's advice. Just be near Emma without forcing anything. I sat on the floor while she played with her toys. After an hour, she held out a teddy bear. Bear is hungry, she said. My heart jumped. It was the first time she talked to me in months. Would Bear like a pretend sandwich? I asked. Emma nodded but quickly looked away, like she remembered she shouldn't talk to me. But it was something. A start. Later that day, Patricia showed up without warning. James was busy in his office, and Emma was asleep upstairs. I opened the door before she could ring the bell. You need to leave, I said firmly. I will not, she snapped, trying to push past me. Emma needs me. You're filling her head with lies. That's exactly what you did to her, I said, standing in her way. We have recordings. A professional confirmed what you did to Emma. She laughed, but I saw fear in her eyes. No one will believe you, she sneered. I'm her grandmother. I only ever loved her. You only ever loved yourself, James said, suddenly behind me, filming with his phone. The restraining order is being filed today. Leave or we'll call the police. Patricia's face twisted with anger. After everything I did, she was better off with me. But then we heard police sirens. One of our neighbors had called them. As the officers arrived, Patricia completely lost control. She's my baby, she screamed. You can't keep her from me. Emma, Grandma's here. The police took her away as she shouted and struggled. I was crying. James held me tightly, both of us shaken. Then a small voice from the stairs caught our attention. Mommy. Emma stood there in her pajamas, scared and confused. Did Grandma make scary screams? She asked. I nodded gently. Yes, sweetheart, but you're safe now. Daddy and I will keep you safe. She walked down the stairs slowly. Grandma said, but she was scary. You're not scary, Mommy. It was just a small sign, but it gave me hope. That night, for the first time in months, Emma let me tuck her into bed. Can you read me a story? She whispered, like before. I opened her favorite book with tears in my eyes. It would take time to heal, but in that moment I knew our bond wasn't lost. It was still there, waiting to grow strong again. 6 months of intensive therapy transformed our family. Dr. Martinez's gentle but firm approach helped Emma slowly untangle the web of lies Patricia had woven. Each small victory, a spontaneous hug, a shared laugh, a love you, Mommy, felt like a miracle. The breakthrough came during a therapy session when Emma was playing with dolls. She had the mommy doll and baby doll acting out a scene. Mommy has to go help sick children, Emma narrated, making the mommy doll walk away. Then she paused, her face scrunching in thought. But she comes back, because she loves baby. Dr. Martinez caught my eye smiling. Emma was finally beginning to understand that my work didn't mean abandonment. That love could exist even when we weren't physically together. That's right, Emma, Dr. Martinez encouraged. Can you tell us more about what Mommy does at work? She helps sick babies get better, Emma said proudly. Like when I had an owie, and Mommy made it stop hurting. The memory she referenced was from before Patricia's interference, a simple scraped knee that I bandaged. But it was her first clear, positive memory of me that she'd articulated since the alienation began. I fought back tears as Emma continued playing, now having the mommy and baby dolls hug and laugh together. James squeezed my hand, his own eyes wet. The legal proceedings against Patricia moved forward. The recordings, combined with Dr. Martinez's professional documentation and Emma's eventual testimony through play therapy, built an insurmountable case. The restraining order became permanent and Patricia faced charges of child psychological abuse. One evening, as I tucked Emma into bed, she asked the question I'd been dreading. Why did Grandma make me scared of you? I sat on the edge of her bed, choosing my words carefully. Sometimes, sweetheart, people do wrong things because they're hurting inside. Grandma, she forgot that mommies and children need each other. She tried to keep all your love for herself. Emma thought about this, hugging her favorite teddy bear. But my love isn't just for one person, right? I can love you and Daddy and my friends. That's exactly right, I smiled, my heart swelling. Love grows bigger when we share it. She reached for me then, wrapping her small arms around my neck. I love you most, Mommy. The healing wasn't just in our immediate family. James had to confront the painful reality of his mother's actions and work through his own therapy to process the betrayal. Our extended family, initially skeptical of the situation, came around after seeing the evidence and witnessing Emma's transformation back to her happy, loving self. The final therapy session with Dr. Martinez felt like a graduation. Emma bounced into the office, immediately pulling out her favorite toys to show how Mommy and baby spent the day together. The change in her is remarkable, Dr. Martinez noted. She's secure in her attachment again, able to distinguish truth from manipulation. You've all done incredible work. As if to prove her point, Emma ran over and climbed into my lap, something that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. Mommy, can we get ice cream after? To celebrate. Later, watching Emma devour her chocolate sundae, bits of ice cream smeared across her smiling face, I felt overwhelming gratitude. We'd come so close to losing her, not physically, but emotionally. Patricia's poisonous influence could have destroyed our bond forever. What are you thinking about? James asked, wiping Emma's face with a napkin. How lucky we are, I replied. How strong our daughter is. Emma looked up at us, her face serious. Mommy, are you going to work tomorrow? Yes, baby. 3 sick children need my help. She nodded, then smiled. That's okay. You always come back, and then we can have more ice cream. James laughed. Maybe not ice cream every time. But hugs, Emma declared. Lots and lots of hugs. Always, I promised, pulling her close. All the hugs you want, forever. That night, long after Emma was asleep, I stood in her doorway watching her peaceful face. The fear and confusion that had haunted her expressions for so long were gone, replaced by the innocent serenity of childhood. Patricia's last attempt to contact us had been a letter, filled with justifications and blame. We turned it over to our lawyer, unopened. She wasn't a part of our story anymore. Our family had emerged stronger, our bonds tested but unbroken. Emma's capacity to heal, to love again despite the trauma inflicted on her young mind, amazed me every day. As I closed her door softly, I whispered the words that had become our nightly ritual. Sweet dreams, my brave girl. Mommy loves you to the moon and back. From her bed came the sleepy reply, love you more, Mommy. And in those 4 simple words lay all the victory we needed. She can't even walk, Your Honor. How can she possibly raise a child? My mother-in-law's voice echoed through the courtroom, each word cutting deeper than the last. Look at her, bound to that wheelchair. My granddaughter deserves better. I sat there, my hands gripping my wheelchair's armrests so tightly my knuckles turned white. Beside me, my husband Thomas squeezed my shoulder, his touch grounding me as Margaret, his mother, continued her theatrical performance. My name is Olivia Chen Martinez, and at 32, I found myself fighting to keep custody of my own daughter because my mother-in-law decided my disability made me an unfit mother. Mrs. Martinez, the judge interrupted, her voice sharp. Are you suggesting that people with disabilities are incapable of parenting? Margaret straightened her designer blazer, her perfectly manicured hand gesturing dramatically toward me. I'm saying my 8-year-old granddaughter needs someone who can keep up with her. Emma's a talented athlete. She needs guidance, physical support. How can someone who can't even stand provide that? I thought about Emma, our brilliant daughter, probably sitting in the hallway with my sister, trying to understand why her grandmother was trying to take her away from me, the same grandmother who'd been undermining my parenting since the day Emma was born. Your Honor, my lawyer started, but I touched her arm, signaling I wanted to speak. May I address the court? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. The judge nodded, and I wheeled myself forward. Years of navigating both physical and social barriers had taught me when to fight and how to do it effectively. This was one of those moments. I've been in this wheelchair since I was 16. I began meeting Margaret's cold stare. A car accident took my ability to walk, but it gave me something else. Determination. I graduated top of my class in physical therapy, met my husband, and built a life that I'm proud of. When Emma was born, yes, I had to adapt. But that's what parents do, wheelchair or not. I pulled out my phone, pulling up a video I'd been saving for this moment. This is from last weekend's swim meet, I said, holding it up. The screen showed Emma diving into the pool, her strokes powerful and precise. I might not be able to swim with her, but I've never missed a practice. I'm the one who drives her to training at 5 a.m., the one who helps her with her technique from the poolside. The video switched to Emma climbing out of the pool, rushing to where I sat in my wheelchair. Mom, did you see? I beat my personal best. Her joy was contagious, her wet arms thrown around me without hesitation. The thing about being a parent with a disability, I continued, my voice growing stronger, is that you learn to focus on what you can do, not what you can't. I might not be able to run alongside Emma, but I've taught her something more valuable, that different doesn't mean less capable. Margaret scoffed, but I noticed her confidence wavering. She needs a normal mother, she insisted, but her voice had lost some of its conviction. Normal? Thomas finally spoke up, his quiet voice carrying across the courtroom. Mom, Olivia's not just a good mother, she's an extraordinary one. Emma's thriving, she's confident, compassionate, and determined, just like her mom. If you'd stop trying to tear our family apart, you might actually see that. The judge leaned forward, her expression thoughtful. Mrs. Chen Martinez, how does Emma feel about your disability? I smiled, remembering a conversation from just last week. She told her class during show and tell that her mom has superpowers, that my wheelchair is like a rocket ship, and that I taught her that obstacles are just opportunities to be creative. This is absurd, Margaret interrupted. She's manipulating everyone. Emma needs. Emma needs her mother, the judge cut in firmly. And from what I've seen, she has an excellent one. She turned to address Margaret directly. Mrs. Martinez, your petition for custody is denied. Furthermore, I'm ordering you to attend sensitivity training regarding disabilities and family dynamics. The relief that flooded through me was overwhelming. Thomas wrapped his arm around my shoulders, and I could feel him trembling slightly. This isn't over, Margaret hissed as she gathered her designer purse. Emma deserves better. But it was over, at least this battle. As we left the courtroom, Emma ran toward us, her dark ponytail bouncing. Mom, Dad, she launched herself into my lap, her favorite spot since she was tiny. Can we get ice cream? I hugged her close, breathing in the familiar scent of chlorine and strawberry shampoo. Ice cream sounds perfect, champion. Looking at my daughter's smiling face, I knew Margaret was wrong. Emma didn't need a normal mother. She needed exactly what she had. A mother who could teach her that limitations are only barriers if you let them be. That different can be extraordinary, and that love doesn't require legs to stand on. What I didn't know then was that this was just the beginning of our story. Emma's determination, sparked by watching her wheelchair-bound mother navigate life with grace and grit, would lead her down a path none of us expected, not even Margaret with all her prejudices and plans. But that day, as we headed for ice cream, our little family unit intact and stronger for having weathered this storm, I felt nothing but gratitude. Gratitude for my supportive husband, our amazing daughter, and yes, even for my wheelchair, because it had taught me that sometimes the biggest victories come after the hardest fights. But that day, as we headed for ice cream, our little family unit intact and stronger for having weathered this storm, I felt nothing but gratitude. Gratitude for my supportive husband, our amazing daughter, and yes, even for my wheelchair, because it had taught me that sometimes the biggest victories come after the hardest fights. 7 years flew by in a whirlwind of chlorine-scented mornings and endless laps. Emma, now 15, had transformed from a promising swimmer into something extraordinary. But life had other plans for us. It happened during a routine training session. One moment Emma was gliding through the water, her strokes powerful and precise. The next she was clutching her leg, her face contorted in pain. Mom, her cry echoed across the pool. I wheeled myself closer as the coach helped her out of the water. I can't feel my legs properly. The diagnosis came like a thunderbolt. Guillain-Barré syndrome, a rare disorder where the body's immune system attacks the nerves. The doctors said it was caught early, but Emma would need intensive therapy. There was a chance she might not swim competitively again. Margaret, of course, couldn't resist weighing in. This is what happens when you let someone in a wheelchair raise a child. She spat during one of her uninvited hospital visits. She probably inherited your weakness. I was about to respond when Emma's voice cut through the room, sharp and clear. Grandma, stop. Mom's not weak. She's the strongest person I know. Margaret's face reddened. Darling, I'm just saying. You're just being cruel. Emma interrupted. Mom taught me that disabilities don't define us. And now I get to prove it, just like she does every day. I watched my daughter, my heart swelling with pride. Even lying in a hospital bed, uncertain if she'd walk properly again, she showed more strength than Margaret had ever understood. The next few months were a battle of determination versus despair. Emma approached her physical therapy with the same intensity she'd given to swimming. I recognized the fire in her eyes. It was the same one I'd had after my accident. Mom, she said one evening during a particularly tough session, I want to try something different. She showed me a video on her phone. Paralympic swimming. Athletes with various disabilities cutting through the water with incredible speed and grace. If I can't compete in regular competitions anymore, she continued, her eyes shining, maybe I can find a new way to chase my dreams. That's when I saw it, the moment my daughter transformed her challenge into an opportunity. Just as I had done years ago, she was refusing to let circumstances define her limits. The journey wasn't easy. Some days, Emma could barely stand. Other days she pushed too hard and ended up in tears of frustration. But she never quit. "You know what's funny, Mom?" she said during one of our late-night talks. "All those years watching you navigate the world from your wheelchair, you were actually teaching me how to adapt, how to find different ways to achieve my goals." Thomas supported us completely, attending every therapy session he could. Even some of Margaret's flying monkeys, her equally judgmental friends, had to admit that our family unit was stronger than ever. One year after her diagnosis, Emma entered her first Paralympic qualifying event. Her times weren't her personal best from before the syndrome, but they were impressive for her new category. Margaret showed up unexpectedly at the competition. "I came to support her," she said stiffly, avoiding my eyes. Despite everything, she's still my granddaughter. I watched as Emma took her position at the starting block. Her legs weren't as strong as they used to be, but her spirit was unshakable. When the whistle blew, she dove in with the same grace she'd always possessed. The crowd erupted as Emma touched the wall first. As she pulled herself out of the pool, her legs shaking but her smile radiant, I saw Margaret's expression change. It wasn't quite acceptance, but perhaps it was the beginning of understanding. "She swims like you used to," Margaret said quietly, surprising me. It was the first time she ever acknowledged my pre-accident life. "No," I replied, watching Emma wave to us from the podium. "She swims like herself. That's always been enough." Later that evening, as we celebrated Emma's victory, she hugged me tightly. "Thanks, Mom." "For what, sweetheart?" "For showing me that sometimes life's biggest challenges become our greatest strengths." I looked at my daughter, now standing on slightly wobbly legs but with her head held high, and realized that sometimes our greatest achievements aren't in spite of our challenges, but because of them. Emma hadn't just adapted to her new reality. She'd embraced it, transformed it, and was using it to inspire others. As I watched her show her medal to Thomas, I couldn't help but think about how far we'd come from that day in the courtroom when Margaret tried to tear us apart. My daughter wasn't just surviving. She was thriving, turning what some might see as a tragedy into a triumph. And this was just the beginning of her journey. 3 years later, I was sitting in the stands at the Paralympic Games, my heart beating fast as Emma stepped up to the pool. Bright stadium lights made the water sparkle like gold. Thomas held my hand tightly, and to my surprise, Margaret sat beside us, holding a handmade sign that said, "Go Emma." At 18, our daughter was more than just a swimmer. She was a symbol of strength. Her journey from a competitive swimmer to a Paralympian had inspired many people facing their own struggles. The announcer's voice echoed through the stadium. In lane 4, representing the United States, Emma Chen Martinez. As the swimmers got ready, I saw something unexpected. Margaret was crying. "I was so wrong," she whispered, her voice shaking. "About everything." The starting buzzer sounded, and Emma dove into the water. Her swimming style had changed to match her new abilities, but it was still beautiful. Every movement was strong and full of purpose. The crowd cheered as the swimmers neared the final turn. Emma was tied with a champion from Australia. In that moment, I thought of every early morning practice, every therapy session, every tear and small victory that led to this point. "Come on, Emma," Margaret shouted, surprising all of us. She stood up, waving her sign. "Show them what you can do." Emma touched the wall. We held our breath as the results came up. CHN Martinez, first. NEUPARALYMPICRETR. Thomas jumped up and lifted me from my wheelchair in joy, spinning me around. Even Margaret was cheering and hugging everyone. After the medal ceremony, Emma came over, her gold medal shining. She hugged each of us, then stopped in front of Margaret. "Grandma," she said gently, "this medal isn't just about swimming. It's about learning that different doesn't mean less. Mom taught me that. Now I want to teach others." Margaret held Emma's hands, tears falling. "I was wrong about so much," she said. "Your mother, she didn't just raise you. She raised you to be amazing." That night, at a small family celebration in our hotel, Margaret pulled me aside. "Olivia," she said, her voice full of emotion, "I want to say sorry, not just for today, but for everything. Watching Emma in that pool helped me finally understand what you've been showing us all along. Real strength comes in many forms." I looked at her, not as someone who had judged me, but as someone who had finally changed. "Thank you," I said softly. "That means a lot." Emma's win didn't just change our family. She started speaking at schools, telling her story of hope and strength. At every event, she talked about where it all began, with a mother in a wheelchair who showed her that challenges could be overcome in new ways. One afternoon, about a month later, Emma came home and saw Margaret helping me make dinner, something we never imagined years ago. "Mom," Emma said, eyes shining, "I've been asked to coach young swimmers with disabilities. They want me to help start a Paralympic training program." I looked at my daughter, standing proudly despite her unsteady legs, and felt so proud. She hadn't just overcome her struggles, she was helping others do the same. Margaret smiled as she chopped vegetables. "You know, Emma, you got that from your mom. Turning hard things into something that helps others." Emma hugged us both. I had great teachers. All of you. As I watched my family, Thomas coming home from work, Emma showing Margaret her coaching plans, I realized that life's biggest victories often look different than we expect. Margaret once saw my wheelchair as a weakness, but it helped teach Emma the most important lesson. Real strength isn't about what you can or can't do. It's about how you face the hard times. And as Emma started this new chapter, guiding other athletes to believe in themselves, I knew our story was never about proving Margaret wrong. It was about proving that love, courage, and acceptance can turn any challenge into something truly extraordinary. Surprise, just sold the lake house to Amanda's dad for $500,000. Don't worry about the paperwork, I signed for both of us. You never cared about that place anyway. I stared at the message from Michael, my coffee sitting untouched on the desk as I tried to process what he'd done. He'd attached a photo, him grinning in front of my lake house, his arm around a young blonde woman who looked barely 25. "My name is Olivia Parker. I'm 38 years old, and today I found out that my husband of 15 years not only has a much younger girlfriend, but also tried to sell my family's lake house to her father. That house had been in my family for 3 generations. My grandfather built it in 1962, and I spent every summer there growing up. When my parents died 5 years ago, they left it to me, only me." I took a sip of coffee. Strangely, I felt calm. A couple months ago, this would have wrecked me. But that was before I found lipstick-stained receipts in Michael's coat. Before I noticed money missing from our joint account. Before I hired a private investigator who confirmed everything I feared. Another text came in. Amanda's dad already sent the money. "We're thinking of remodeling, maybe adding a pool. Time to bring some youth to the place." I couldn't help but smile a little. Michael was always full of himself. But this? Trying to sell property that wasn't his? That was a new level. Then a message from a number I didn't know. "Hi Olivia, it's Amanda. Just wanted to thank you for being so cool about the house. Daddy's super excited to make it our new vacation spot. Michael says you never use it anyway." I saved her number and didn't reply. Instead, I called Thomas Morgan, our family lawyer. "Olivia," he answered right away. I was just about to call. "I got some odd documents about the lake house." "Let me guess," I said, leaning back. "A forged signature trying to transfer ownership." "Exactly, and not a very good one either. Your husband's no expert in faking signatures." I heard papers rustling on his end. "The interesting part," he added, "is that Amanda's dad already wired $500,000 into Michael's personal account." $500,000? I asked, already knowing the number. "Yes, and since Michael had no right to sell the house, and this clearly counts as fraud." He trailed off. "What can we do?" "Well," Thomas said with a hint of amusement, "we can tell Amanda's dad right now and start legal action against Michael." Or, I asked. "We could wait until they submit the transfer paperwork to the county and let them figure out they've been scammed. Sometimes people learn best when reality hits." I thought of Michael's smug texts, Amanda's clueless message, and all the nights I'd wondered why he'd been so distant. "Let's wait," I said. "How long do we have?" "With that amount of money, they'll likely file in the next few days." I looked at a photo on my desk. Michael and I last summer at the lake house. He was smiling, but now it looked fake. Was he already planning this then? "Keep me updated," I told Thomas. "Thanks." After hanging up, I finally replied to Michael. "Congrats on the sale. Hope everything turns out just the way you deserve." He texted right back. "Glad you're finally being reasonable. I'll send someone to pack your stuff. I looked around my office at everything I'd built for myself while Michael plotted behind my back. The lake house wasn't just a place, it was history, family, love. And the fact he thought he could just sell it like it meant nothing said everything about who he really was. Another text buzzed in. Michael says we should throw a housewarming party after the reno. You're totally welcome to come if you want. I put the phone down without replying. Let them have their party. Let them plan. The real surprise was coming, and this time, I'd be the one watching it unfold. I stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city. I'd had this office view for 10 years, ever since I started my own practice. Michael once called it a waste of money, said my clients didn't care about the view. But I cared, just like I cared about the lake house, about family, about respect. My phone lit up with a message from Thomas. They just submitted the paperwork to the county. Should take about 48 hours. I smiled as the sunset painted the sky in warm colors. In 2 days, Michael would realize what he'd really done. And I'd be right here, watching everything fall apart. For him. Because sometimes the best revenge is just letting people deal with the mess they made. 2 days passed at an agonizingly slow pace. I kept my phone close, waiting for the inevitable explosion that would come when Michael discovered his mistake. Each hour brought new messages from him and Amanda, filled with renovation plans and thinly veiled jabs about updating the old place. The call came at 3:47 p.m. What the hell is this? Michael's voice crackled through my speaker. All pretense of civility gone. The county just rejected the transfer. They're saying I had no right to sell the property. I settled into my office chair, enjoying the panic in his voice. Oh, that's strange. Did they say why? Don't play dumb, Olivia. They said the house is solely in your name. That's impossible. We're married. Everything is joint property. I could hear Amanda in the background, her voice high and worried, asking what was wrong. Not everything, Michael. The lake house was inherited from my parents. It was never in your name. You knew, he accused. You knew and you let me sell it anyway. Correction. I let you try to sell it. There's a difference. I kept my voice calm, professional. By the way, how's Mr. Anderson taking the news? The silence on the other end was deafening. Finally, Michael spoke, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. He's threatening legal action. Says if he doesn't get his money back immediately, he's going to the police. Well, that's unfortunate, I replied. Especially since you've already spent some of that money, haven't you? Another pause. I could almost see him pacing, running his hands through his graying hair the way he did when things spiraled out of his control. How did you know that? The same way I know about the apartment you leased for Amanda 3 months ago, and the jewelry you bought her, and the weekend trips to Miami. I let each revelation land like a hammer blow. I'm not as oblivious as you thought, Michael. You had me followed. His indignation would have been amusing if it weren't so hypocritical. Let's call it due diligence. Now, I assume Mr. Anderson will want his $500,000 back rather quickly. I don't, he started, then stopped. I can't pay it all back right now. In the background, I heard Amanda's voice rise in pitch. What do you mean you can't pay it back? Daddy's going to be furious. I waited, letting them argue for a moment before speaking again. You know, fraud charges are serious, Michael. Forging signatures, selling property you don't own. That could mean jail time. You wouldn't, he said. His voice wavered. I wouldn't have to do anything. Mr. Anderson seems perfectly capable of handling that himself. The sound of a door slamming came through the phone, followed by Amanda's voice growing distant, calling for her father. Michael's breathing had grown heavy, panicked. Olivia, please, we can work something out. I'll move out, give you whatever you want in the divorce. Just help me fix this. I thought about all the times I caught him in small lies over the years, how he'd always managed to talk his way out of them. Not this time. You know what's interesting? I said, keeping my tone conversational. When you were so busy planning your new life, you forgot to check whose name was on the deed. Just like you forgot to check whose name was on the investment account you used for Amanda's apartment. What are you talking about? The account you emptied last month? It was in my name too. Every withdrawal, every transfer, it's all documented. Mr. Anderson might be interested in seeing those records. You're bluffing, he said, but I could hear the fear creeping into his voice. Am I? Check your email. I just sent you copies of everything. bank statements, transfer records, even some interesting text messages between you and Amanda from 6 months ago. I'm sure her father would find those enlightening. The sharp intake of breath told me he was reading them now. How did you get copies? Let's just say I learned from your mistakes, Michael. I learned to document everything. The sound of another door opening came through the phone, followed by a man's angry voice. Mr. Anderson, I assumed. Michael's next words came in a rush. I have to go. We're not done talking about this. Actually, I said, I think we are. Good luck with Mr. Anderson. I hear he has an excellent lawyer. I hung up and leaned back in my chair, feeling lighter than I had in months. Through my office window, I could see storm clouds gathering on the horizon, appropriate weather for the storm Michael had just walked into. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. Mr. Anderson's lawyer just called. They're pursuing criminal charges unless full restitution is made immediately. I smiled, typing back, keep me updated. I have a feeling things are about to get very interesting. Looking at the family photo on my desk, taken at the lake house last summer, I finally saw what I should have noticed months ago. While Michael was looking at the camera, his smile forced and distant, I was looking at the horizon, already moving toward a future that didn't include him. The fallout was swifter and more devastating than even I had anticipated. By evening, Mr. Anderson had marched into the police station, files in hand, ready to press charges. Michael's desperate calls kept coming, each one more panicked than the last. Please, Olivia, he begged during his 6th call. Anderson's serious about pressing charges. I could go to jail. I sat on the lake house dock, my feet dangling over the water, watching the sunset paint the lake in shades of gold. That's generally what happens when you commit fraud, Michael. I'll do anything, he said. I'll give you full ownership of everything in the divorce. Just help me fix this. I couldn't help but laugh. Full ownership? Of what exactly? The house you tried to sell is already mine. The investment account you drained was in my name. What exactly are you offering? His silence spoke volumes. That's what I thought, I continued. By the way, Amanda stopped by earlier. What? The panic in his voice rose. Why? To apologize, actually. Seems her father showed her all the evidence, including those texts where you promised to leave me 6 months ago. She was quite shocked to learn you'd been lying to her, too. The truth had hit Amanda hard. She'd arrived at the lake house in tears, mascara streaking down her face. He told me you were separated, she'd sobbed. He said you were just staying together for appearances. I'd made her tea, let her cry it out. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people see the truth for themselves. Amanda's gone. Michael's voice cracked. Back to her father's house. She mentioned something about focusing on her career instead of lying older men. Her words, not mine. The sound of something breaking came through the phone, followed by muffled cursing. Mr. Anderson's lawyer called, I said conversationally. They're willing to drop the criminal charges if you repay the full amount within 48 hours. Generous of them, don't you think? You know I can't get that kind of money that quickly. Actually, you can. Sell your beloved boat. Liquidate your retirement account. Sell those ridiculous collector cars you bought last year. It might be just enough. Another crash, followed by heavy breathing. You're enjoying this, aren't you? No, Michael, I'm not enjoying it. I'm just finally seeing you clearly. I ended the call and looked out over the lake. The water was calm, reflecting the evening sky like a mirror. My grandfather used to say still waters run deep, meaning the quietest people often have the most powerful thoughts. He would have appreciated how this played out. Over the next week, I watched through my lawyer as Michael scrambled to gather the money. He sold his prized possessions, emptied his accounts, even borrowed from friends. In the end, he managed to repay Mr. Anderson just hours before the deadline. The divorce proceedings were remarkably straightforward. Michael, humbled and exhausted, didn't contest anything. He signed the papers without argument, giving me everything I asked for, not that there was much left to give. The last time I saw him was at the courthouse. He looked older, defeated, his designer clothes replaced by off-the-rack basics. I never meant for it to go this far, he said quietly. You never meant to get caught. I corrected him. There's a difference. He nodded, shoulders slumping. The lake house, it really was beautiful. I should have appreciated it more. You should have appreciated a lot of things more, Michael. As he turned to leave, he paused. What will you do now? I smiled, thinking of the renovation plans I'd already drawn up for the lake house, not to modernize it, but to restore it to its original glory, the way my grandfather had built it. I'm going to keep building the life I deserve, I said. And this time, I'm doing it my way. The following weekend, I hosted a family reunion at the lake house. Cousins, aunts, uncles, all the people Michael had gradually pushed away over the years. We shared stories about my grandfather building the place, about summers spent swimming and fishing, about the legacy that had almost been lost. Standing on the dock that evening, watching the kids play in the water while the adults gathered on the porch, I felt a profound sense of peace. The house was full of laughter again, full of life and love, the way it was always meant to be. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. Final divorce papers are filed. It's officially over. I looked out over the lake, at the future stretching before me like the endless horizon. No, I thought, it's just beginning. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting free. Free to live authentically, free to honor your legacy, and free to build something better from the ashes of betrayal. The lake house stands as a testament to that truth. Not just a house, but a home. Not just a property, but a legacy. And not just a victory, but a new beginning. You don't belong in this family, Margaret yelled as she threw my handmade birthday gift for my husband into the trash. My son could have married someone rich, someone important, but instead he chose you, a nobody. I stood in her spotless kitchen, my hands shaking but my voice firm. I love James, and he loves me. That should be enough. My name is Isabella Martinez. I was 29 and had been married to James for 3 years, but his mother still looked down on me. No matter what I did, being a teacher, learning their family traditions, or just trying to be kind, it was never enough. She especially hated that I came from a hard-working Mexican immigrant family. Margaret crossed her arms. Love isn't enough. This family has standards. You'll never truly be one of us. Then she picked up the glass angel I had made for James and dropped it into the garbage disposal. The sharp sound of it breaking made my heart ache, but I refused to cry. Next week is our family portrait, she said coldly. Try to wear something decent this time. Before I could answer, my little nephew Tommy ran in. Auntie Bella, can we play trucks? His bright smile broke the tension. Of course, Mio, I said, smiling back. Margaret frowned at my use of Spanish, but Tommy didn't notice. Just then, James walked in. He glanced at the broken glass. Then at his mother's stiff posture and my clenched fists. What's going on? He asked. Just helping Isabella understand how things work in this family, Margaret said smoothly. Oh, and I've arranged for a stylist to pick a proper dress for her for the gala tomorrow. James hesitated but forced a smile. That's thoughtful, Mom. He always tried to keep the peace, stuck between his love for me and his mother's disapproval. Later that night, as we drove home, he squeezed my hand. She'll come around, he said. She just needs time. But it had been 3 years and nothing had changed. In fact, it had only gotten worse, especially after we told her we were trying for a baby. A child needs a proper upbringing, she had said. With the right values. She didn't think my values were good enough. The next morning, I was outside pushing Tommy on the swing while Margaret hosted her garden club. James was inside with his father. Higher, Auntie Bella. Tommy giggled. Across the yard, I heard Margaret's voice. It's a shame. James could have married Caroline Prescott. Instead, he brought home, well, I ignored her, focusing on Tommy's laughter. His love made Margaret's cruelty easier to bear. Watch me jump. Tommy suddenly shouted. Before I could stop him, he leaped off the swing at its highest point. Time slowed. He was too high, too far. Without thinking, I lunged forward and caught him just before he hit the ground. We crashed damn hard. Pain shot through my back, but I held him tight. As we rolled to a stop, I heard Margaret scream. Someone call an ambulance. Tommy was crying but safe. I tried to move, but I couldn't. Everything hurt. The last thing I saw before everything went black was Margaret's face, filled not with anger, but something else. Fear? Worry? As I lost consciousness, I heard her whisper, "Hold on, Isabella. Please hold on." When I woke up, hospital machines beeped around me. James was holding my hand, his face pale with worry. "Bella," he whispered, "thank God." I tried to squeeze his hand, But nothing happened. I couldn't move. Fear filled me as I realized the truth. What I didn't know was that this moment, this sacrifice, would change everything, especially Margaret's heart. The first month after the accident was a blur of doctors, tests, and hard news. My spine was badly injured, and the doctors said I might never walk again. I might never hold my future children. I might never return to my classroom full of excited first graders. You saved his life, the doctors told me about Tommy. If you hadn't caught him, it didn't have to finish. I knew what could have happened. James stayed by my side, barely sleeping, fighting with insurance companies, searching for treatments. But I could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of it all pressing down on him. Margaret came too, but she wasn't the same. She didn't make sharp comments or look at me with disapproval. She just sat there, watching, listening. One afternoon, as I struggled in therapy to pick up a small ball with my weak fingers, Margaret appeared in the doorway. She looked different, smaller, less sharp. Tommy asks about you every day, she said, stepping inside. He wanted me to give you this. She placed a crayon drawing in my lap. A stick figure labeled me standing next to another labeled my hero auntie. I stared at it, wishing I could hold it properly. How is he? Physically, he's fine. But he's having nightmares. He keeps saying he's sorry. My heart ached. It's not his fault. He's just a little boy. Margaret hesitated, her hands trembling. No, it wasn't his fault. She swallowed hard. I've been thinking about what you did. You didn't even hesitate. You just acted to save him. He's family, I said. Margaret flinched as if the word had struck her. She opened her mouth to say something more, but then James arrived with my lunch. Mom, he looked surprised. I didn't know you were coming today. I was just leaving, she said quickly, but at the door she turned back. Isabella, thank you. For my grandson. It was the first time she had ever thanked me. After that, Margaret changed. She visited often, not just for a few minutes, but for hours. She watched my therapy, took notes, even scolded a nurse for being too rough. This is my daughter-in-law, she said sharply. Be more careful. Daughter-in-law, not just James's wife or that girl. The words meant something. One day, after a frustrating therapy session where I couldn't even hold a cup, Margaret did something I never expected. She pulled her chair close and took my hand, the one I couldn't feel. You know, she said softly, when James was little, he struggled to ride a bike. People told me to let him give up, but I knew he needed to keep trying. So every day we went outside. Every day he fell. And every day we got back up. She squeezed my hand. You're going to get back up, Isabella, and this time I'm going to help you. I looked at her, searching for the woman who had once thrown my gift away, but she wasn't there anymore. Why? I whispered. Why now? Margaret was quiet for a long time. Then she said, barely above a whisper, because I was wrong. I thought family had to look a certain way, but I was blind to what was right in front of me, someone who would sacrifice everything for one of us. Tears filled my eyes. I might never walk again. Then we'll face that together, she said. As a family. For the first time since the accident, I felt something other than fear. I felt hope. 6 months passed, marked by small victories and crushing setbacks. Against all odds, feelings started returning to my upper body, though my legs remained stubbornly unresponsive. Every tiny improvement felt like a miracle. The first time I could feed myself, hold a phone, hug Tommy when he visited. Margaret became my unexpected champion. She transformed her pristine garden room into a state-of-the-art rehabilitation space, hiring the best physical therapists in the country. The woman who once criticized my every move now celebrated each small triumph as if it were an Olympic achievement. Look what Isabella did today, she'd announce proudly to anyone who would listen, showing videos of me managing to brush my own hair or sign my name. The garden club ladies who once whispered behind their teacups now brought casseroles and offered encouragement. One afternoon, as I struggled with my exercises, Margaret sat beside me looking through old family albums. I found something, she said, turning the book toward me. There was a photo of a young woman in a wheelchair, smiling brightly despite obvious challenges. This was my grandmother. After polio, they said she'd never leave her bed. She proved them wrong. I stared at the photo, seeing the same determination in the woman's eyes that I felt in my heart. You never mentioned her before. No, Margaret admitted softly. I think I was ashamed of how our family treated her. How I treated you. She closed the album, meeting my eyes. But she never gave up, and neither will you. That conversation changed something fundamental between us. Margaret began sharing more family stories, not just the polished society tales she'd once prized, but the real human stories of struggle and resilience. She even asked about my own family's history, listening intently as I told her about my parents' journey from Mexico, their sacrifices, their strength. Then came the day that changed everything. I was working with my physical therapist when I felt it, the faintest twitch in my toe. At first, I thought I'd imagined it, but no, there it was again. Margaret. I called out, my voice shaking. Look. She rushed over, and together we watched as I managed to move my toe just slightly. It was tiny, barely noticeable, but it was movement. It was hope. Margaret burst into tears, pulling me into a careful hug. I knew it, she whispered. I knew you were stronger than anyone thought. The doctors called it a miracle. Slowly, painfully, I began regaining movement in my legs. Each step in my recovery was met with fierce determination and unwavering support from my newfound ally. The woman who once thought I wasn't good enough to join her family now proudly told everyone about her extraordinary daughter-in-law. 1 year after the accident, I stood, shakily but standing, in the Wilson family garden. The same garden where everything had changed. Tommy, now 5, held my hand while James supported me on the other side. Ready for the family photo, Margaret called, setting up the camera. But I'm still in braces, I said, gesturing to my leg supports. Margaret walked over and straightened my collar with gentle hands. Yes, and they show exactly who you are. A fighter, a protector, a true Wilson. She smiled, tears in her eyes. Now, let's show everyone what real family strength looks like. As we gathered for the photo, I realized something profound. The accident hadn't just changed my body. It had transformed our entire family. Margaret's perfectly manicured facade had cracked, revealing a deeper, more authentic love. My struggle had become our struggle, my victories our victories. Today, I still face challenges. Some days are harder than others. But now when I look in the mirror, I don't see someone who's not worthy. I see someone who proved her worth not through social status or traditions, but through unconditional love and sacrifice. And Margaret, she's the first to remind me of that. Every morning when she comes to help with my therapy, she greets me the same way. Good morning, my brave, beautiful daughter. Sometimes the greatest healing isn't physical at all. Sometimes it's the healing of hearts that were broken long before any bones. And as for being worthy, well, as Margaret now likes to say, true worth isn't about where you come from or what you can do. It's about who you are when it matters most. I guess sometimes it takes losing the ability to stand to help someone else finally see you standing tall.